company dedicated to enhancing leaders' ability to harness and optimize trust as a strategic business asset.
Employees of high trust companies have 70% greater mission alignment. That comes from the Harvard Business Review on neuroscience of trust study.
Wow. Again, that reminds us trust is the difference, huh? That's amazing. We think about 70% greater alignment. And we talk about mission alignment, I guess defining that for us, that's really just an agreement or an alignment around what are the aims and the values of the organization. So I imagine that idea of making decisions that continually support the mission is what continues to sustain the trust. Is that how you see it?
I do. Yeah, I think that's a spot on definition for mission alignment. I just want to remind everyone that trust is the willingness to be vulnerable. And so when we're talking about mission alignment and then trust causing that, increasing that, that's pretty meaningful. So the willingness to be vulnerable is leading to greater mission alignment, a greater collective or higher purpose. We're doing this together. We have something higher than us individually or even as teams within an organization driving our behavior, but not just our behavior, our actual motivations. What is driving us together for a shared end purpose?
Yeah, and when you talk about that shared purpose, that idea that we're doing something greater than ourselves, I think our society has kind of moved that direction. That very purpose-oriented workforce, purpose-oriented environments today are motivating. And if we think about the work that Rob Cross and Amy Edmondson did. There's sort of a misconception that purpose is the way to enhance results. But they say in their research that there's actually a step before that, which is building trust. So again, one more time, trust is the difference. We have to have that foundation of trust before people will then step into this collective higher purpose. So I guess that goes hand in hand with the statistic we see from Harvard Business Review that if you don't just look at purpose, you got to look at the step before that around creating alignment and creating trust before you can create that alignment.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the opposite of, mission alignment would be mission incongruence, perhaps. And so when you have incongruence, you have a mission statement, vision statement, but within the organization, there's multiple polarities, multiple directions that different, perhaps teams, divisions are going. And sometimes they're competing or pulling against each other in different directions. And so that is going to lead to less alignment and really less performance in a particular direction as well. And so that's concerning to any leader of an organization, obviously. You want to have mission alignment. You want to be moving in the same direction. That's a lot of the work of the leader.
Yeah.
In doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me in terms of what I see in my experience too, is when there is a high trust environment and we know we're marching towards something similar that allows us to continue to look forward and march toward that versus looking back, wondering, is someone trying to outdo me? Is someone taking credit for my work? That distrusting, some of those behaviors that we see in distrusting environments detracts from us getting to that higher purpose. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and that you start with the trust so people do feel like this is an environment where we're all marching towards something collectively together. I wonder if you have an example of this that you've seen in your work or your experiences.
Well, you and I have varied professional experiences, just a wealth, and I'm sure we'll have opportunities to share stories. But, I worked as an executive director with Habitat for Humanity, love the organization, love the mission and the vision. And so it takes on a very particular organizational model. There's so many of them locally. And so there's a lot of autonomy as well at the local level. And so when the Restore, the Habitat for Humanity Restore came into existence, it created an opportunity right? It created an opportunity. The restore is reuse and of building materials and then reselling and then using the profit for the mission, using those proceeds for the mission of low income housing. And so when that became an opportunity for raising funds, it then also created a competing submission. And that was very interesting as a leader to be able to try to bring employees, donors, and board members on board to the existing overarching mission of low income housing, but then also utilizing that new revenue stream without it overtaking as a mission. Very interesting process.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, what a great organization. A big fan of Habitat for Humanity as well. And as you think about the conflict potentially that could have in people's minds, which direction are we aiming? Even though they really are, they should be congruent. It can put a wrench in some of the decision making, not knowing and being committed to one collective mission together. And how do I prioritize those? So yeah, it on the surface it seems very easy. We have this mission alignment, and we're all, in a high trust environment, we're all going to be marching the same direction. But you point out such a great example of where it isn't always as easy as it seems.
Well, yeah, when there's not trust existing and then an organization change occurs, either internally and purposefully as development or externally causing change to the organization, well, then if there's distrust there or low trust, then it's hard to overcome that. And silos can be created that are competing against each other. And then that's causing discontinuity and not mission alignment. How about you? Do you have any examples that you can think of?
Yeah, I think, in the world that I live in, which is, primarily, as working in the pharmaceutical biotech industry, I think there tends to be a lot of pressure, for pharmaceutical companies to continue to fund the research that they're doing for patient communities. And so, the alignment toward helping particular patient communities and specific patients is always there. But there is a tendency sometimes, I think, to go off and want to pursue the bottom line performance, bottom line financial performance in order to continue to fund that. And so there are times where I think people's ability to make decisions becomes cloudy. It's not as clear how to make that decision because we want to make sure it's a circle of, are we, creating an environment where we're serving our patient communities, but at the same time, it takes money to drive that innovation and research that happens to be sustaining of those patients and those patient communities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, mission driven, I think, is an important part and starts with trust, because when there's a trusting environment, you can ask the tough questions. You can speak candidly. You can really ask the hard questions that allows you then to make sure that you're staying focused on the true mission.
Yep.
Yeah. So another interesting conversation today, Anthony. Appreciate your insights and sharing that information around your experience. We'll continue the conversation, and we invite the leaders, the listeners in our audience to chime in, ask your questions. We'd love to hear them and appreciate your engagement in our conversation.